The American Smelting and Refining Company, for most of its history, was a U.S.-based multinational corporation whose purpose was to extract and process metal for the global market. In the open pit mines, where most copper is mined today, the work goes something like this. Blast away a few thousand pounds of porphyry rock, load it into a giant 150-ton dump truck, and crush it under the force of a giant bell-shaped bearing. Crush it some more under finer bearings. Send it away in train cars or conveyors, then mix with water and chemical agents to isolate the copper particles. Now, bake it at 2000 degrees, drop in a mammoth ladle, and separate the waste material from the copper, and send the copper through flaming motes for processing into slabs called anodes. From 100 pounds of rock, this gargantuan process produces barely 12,000 ounces of copper. ASARCO's end-cycle plant in Corpus Christi broke most of the company regulations, and from 1992 to 1997, ASARCO El Paso was a co-conspirator. It was several years after this that El Paso community found out about the illegal waste disposal and discovered that their home had become the go-to place for ASARCO Incorporated to dump its corporate toxic wastes. The ex-employees expressed resentment, and they had been directly exposed to those toxins for 6 years with no warning, no extra training, and no protection. The work environment at ASARCO or any other smelter is dangerous. They dangled over the furnaces, breathing the fumes as they fed loads of toxic product into the furnace. They had to climb into flues, pipes, and ovens where the toxic soot, acidic gases, and intense heat pelted them. They scooped toxic mud out of those tubes. They directed the flow of molten slag and metal, and during the heat and breathing off the gases, they lifted and manipulated heavy equipment and industrial welding tools. After all, they were turning mountains into metal, slag, and smoke. Joe Pignon, an El Paso pharmacist, was an early voice speaking out against the dangers of lead poisoning, and was well aware of the dangers of lead, arsenic, cadmium, and other byproducts of smelting. Pignon had observed physical problems in El Paso neighborhoods and among ASARCO workers. It was common knowledge that ASARCO's emissions traveled across the border into Mexico, as well as into neighboring New Mexico, and that ASARCO often waited until the winds blew toward Mexico to increase its production. Pignon was especially concerned about the people who lived south of the Rio Grande River in Juarez. For many years, Pignon was virtually the lone voice calling for investigation of ASARCO's emissions. The metal industry reminds us that what is not grown is mined, and getting those mined resources out of the earth and into the hands of the humans who use them comes at a huge cost to nature. We explode, slice, and burrow into the earth to get the ores, haul the ores into trucks as big as houses, toss the newly exposed earth and mine tailings into our water and air, and then extract the metal or oil through complex industrial processes that poison the air, land, water, and the people in their wake. Many of these children who were poisoned live in Smelter Town, a small community that emerged in the late 1800s with affordable homes for some employees of ASARCO and a nearby cement plant. The village was located on a narrow stretch of land between the smelter and the river. There are no accurate population records, but about 500 people lived in the community in the 1970s. Shortly after ASARCO began operations, employees of the smelter and a nearby cement factory built homes on a stretch of land along the Rio Grande, just a few meters from the ASARCO facility. That small community, officially part of El Paso, remained until 1970, when it was destroyed because of the severe lead pollution and children illnesses. In April 2013, the ASARCO smokestacks in El Paso were demolished in an early morning explosion. Some residents advocated that the smokestacks remain. The ASARCO towers were a special memento, a memory of loved ones who once worked there. ASARCO held a special place in the hearts and was a source of community pride. In the end, the high cost of insuring a 60-year-old 828-foot brick tower full of toxins was prohibitive.